Somewhere in the middle, try to find myself again. But life is one big riddle of the future and what's been. Guess it's the way it goes, and I will never know why you let me go. Look to the left, look to the right, nothing can stop me in the night, like I am leaving all the bad stuff and trying to remain so strong. I know it's good if I'm alone. I got it, I gotta go, 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 running to better times. Go, 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 from my emotions I'll go, 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 running to better times, to better times, to better times.
Good evening, everyone, including Elle, who is magically here. I guess she's gone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Louvre Table Talk, brought to you by the Louvre Health Co. You just saw a glimpse of Elle Hoffman, the CEO of the company. Louvre Health Co. is a comprehensive digital wellness platform for marginalized communities. So we're really excited to be back here for episode, I don't remember. Thank you for sticking with us. We had some glitches last week. Actually, not glitches. We took some time off for some self-care. And we are back this week to talk kind of about that very topic. So as you may be able to tell, I'm in a different background, different space. Partially because of self-care. I'm just trying to revamp some parts of my house and trying to make cozier, more winter-friendly spaces. For me, the winter and the grayness outside is a really difficult time for my mental health. And so just trying to take a few steps to take care of myself. What do you do to take care of yourself, Smara?
Beautiful. Same. And I have that same desire to get some more organizational things for our living space in the living room and kitchen. So I feel you on that. And just even today, I went out to the vitamin shop and got vitamin D3. D3 is really important for us, for our immune system, but specifically people of color. Our skin does not absorb sun at the same rate as other ethnicities unless we live in like a sunny climate where we're outside all the time. We moved to Florida for that same reason, for some of my health things and just to be by the water, right? But unless you're outside in the sun, actually getting it in, you're not absorbing it as much. And so I said that to say, when we have low D3, it mimics the exact symptoms of depression, lethargy, fatigue, memory issues, don't want to get out of bed, like you're dragging through life, and nothing may not be quote unquote wrong that's happening in your life. You just feel so depleted. Low D3 really can contribute to that. And so I've taken it on and off for years. I get labs around this. I have my, therapy clients get blood work with their doctor when we begin working together to make sure there aren't vitamin deficiencies that are also causing some of their symptoms. And so we can kind of work with an integrated approach. But I said that to say, vitamin therapy is a huge part of my self-care, huge. I commit to it like it is the gospel. My whole family takes vitamins. My daughter knows all about vitamins, but they have helped me so much on my own healing journey, and they help me with the capacity. A lot of B vitamins are great to help your body to process stress. And so certainly in times like we are in now, where there's stress in the energy, in the environment, in the collective, and when we have our own personal lives, of course, there can be more stress than usual. So supporting your body, loving your body, helping it to function at its best is key. And for women, we are ruled so much by our emotions and how we feel. What Lexi's saying is crucial. It's important to be on the offense and doing some preventative things and kind of setting yourself up for success, no matter what you're talking about, your home, your schedule, your relationships. What Lexi's saying is so, so important. Many people deal with seasonal affective disorder. It's called SAD, so sad, yes. And they can be fine like the whole rest of the year. They're just like gliding through. And then when fall comes, especially if you live in places where it gets dark faster, you wake up to dark, you get home to dark, you're inside all day with work. Those are really factors that contribute to that. And there's lots of resources, but vitamin therapy can be one, light therapy can be one. If you research, they will tell you the exact kind of wattage for the light bulbs that you need to replace in your home for the wintertime to help with the light. There are devices that you can buy that you can like put your face in, and like glasses. Then LED lights can help with infrared technology to help boost your own natural serotonin, dopamine. It's a whole conversation, but and I'd be happy to share resources if anyone is interested with that. But the gist of it is oftentimes when we don't feel well, we choose to, and we've been conditioned to push through. It's so important. What Lexi's saying is take a step back and see what small steps can I take today to help myself to just be more content and more fulfilled and more okay. Sometimes we just need to allow ourselves to be okay. And if we're not okay, make whatever adjustments that you can right where you are. My journey has been like an ascension, but mine started off with a multivitamin, right? And getting around some people who were getting healthier themselves. And so small steps begin to really fuel my own personal healing journey. But self-care is queen. She is definitely so important, and you can make it fun and you can make it light, but it is as necessary as showering.
And I think, and particularly in the Black community, there is this misconception of self care. I think a lot of us, we close our eyes and think about the term. We think about people going to spas and going on trips and doing all of these frivolous, although maybe helpful things, when for most of us, it's really just little baby steps, right? It's little things like I'm doing more work in a different room of my house that has, and I moved some plants around, or, maybe I indulge myself and cook my favorite meal. It's little things that we do, and it doesn't have to be these large gestures, but each little thing adds up. Like just taking a multivitamin was such a huge step
And it
for you
helps
in your
so much.
journey, and it didn't have to be
Yeah, it
monumental.
helps so much. I love what you're saying too. This is right up my alley, this conversation, because few things are either or. Few things are strictly black or white. The reality is, many things fall on a spectrum, they fall on a continuum. And so, what Lexi's saying is so imperative. I have friends, clients, colleagues who love the feminine experience, and they love getting their hair done and putting on makeup and lashes and pedicures and spa days and all of these things. And those things are wonderful. And I believe that those can be needed if they make you feel better about yourself. However, we also have to be okay and love the version of us that wakes up first thing in the morning. Like we have to love that version of ourselves and pour into ourselves on every level. And so I love what Lexi is saying, because what I teach in my work is that when, as women, when and for men too, but when we embrace self-care as a lifestyle, it really begins to become a foundation from which we can live and have longevity for a lifetime, because it's as generic as it sounds, it's true. You cannot keep driving a car on empty. The car will stop. You will run out of gas. You can't pour from an empty cup. When that cup is empty, there's no more coffee in there. Like you can't keep pouring coffee out. So we need to recharge ourselves, whether we recharge our phones, and we have to really lean into dropping the stigma. Because I think sometimes we judge ourselves as much as we fear being judged about what will folks think if I'm going to a monthly massage session, or should I spend this money on this when I could be doing that? And what I have come to find out, the money you spend on yourself will be spent some other way at some point, either with health stuff, with stress stuff. You're too sick to be able to work. You have health conditions that are stress induced. Many women, myself included, have autoimmune conditions that are driven by stress. We've discussed this earlier in our series, but when you have chronic stress as a child, that can become embodied with physical and mental health conditions that are long term. Many of you know about the ACEs study. It was a study that really helped define just 10 questions. It talks about how you grew up. You know, it's not memorized, but was there addiction in the house? Was there domestic violence in the house? Was there poverty in the house? Did you feel safe? And so you mark your questions, your answers. And so, 1 to 5 is moderate, 5 and over is significant. And so my own personal score was high. And I had a stressful childhood because of many different circumstances. But what is linked to that study is that the higher your number, the higher risk you are in your adult life to have physical health conditions that are chronic, mental health conditions, addiction issues. You can be prone to chaos and just misfortune. And so part of identifying that and healing it is to destigmatize what we think about stress, unravel some of the stress mechanisms that we have embodied, living in survival, going from one chaos to another, sometimes accepting situations that just aren't healthy, whether it's work or personal life. All of these can contribute to ongoing stress, and it can bring up the old feelings of stress that you may have had in childhood or in young adulthood that keeps your nervous system dysregulated consistently, and that causes just challenges in our everyday life. And what Lexi is saying is perfect and spot on with start where you are. Very simple things can make a difference. I have kept my phone on vibrate for years and years and years. And if there's a certain call that I need to have come in, I'll turn the ringer on, but I don't keep it on. There are simple things. We have rituals just that we do together as a family just to help reduce that stress when you are single and when you're just in a season where you spend more time by yourself. What Lexi's saying is beautiful about what's one thing that you could do to bring more joy, more contentment, more fulfillment in when you are in spaces that are safe for you. How can you amplify that? And it could mean rearranging your setting in your home. It could be new sheets. It could be buying a candle, right? They can be simple things. It could be reading a book. There were years that I love to read, I always have, but I realized like after school, I had stopped reading altogether. I wasn't reading anything. One day it was like, you know what? I love to read. Why am I not reading? And it was the simplest thing that made a huge difference in how much joy I felt in my life. So we would love to hear from you guys. Let us know, what are your favorite self-care rituals and what are the things that really bring you joy? And if something comes up when you hear that question, what brings me joy? That can be space for self-exploration, because as we evolve and grow, sometimes we can lose track of the things that really light us up and that bring us joy. Kids have this nailed because they want what they want when they want it. They love to laugh. They love to be happy. They can wake up and it be like, 7 o'clock and they're like, I'm ready for this day. Can I get some ice cream? Like, let's go. I am like, they are ready and they don't care what's happening around them. And I get that we can't always live that way as adults, but the essence of that is so important. Yes, my dog, I love that. Someone commented, really finding ways to ground in to joy, and whatever your values are, encouragement, safety, fun, adventure, excitement. There are ways to bring this into our everyday life, and we can keep it really simple.
I love that. And it's crazy the things that you listed, because I just started doing all of those things again. So I've known about my SAD since I was a freshman in college. So I have years to figure this out. And I'm like, it's that time of year again. I keep candles that I have as my emergency candles, not like natural disaster, but like emergency sadness candles. I lit some new candles. They're all papaya and mango scented. I love the tropical
Smell is
feel.
huge.
I'm moving some plants around the
Yeah.
house. I have a guest bedroom that I'm blessed to have. And I'm now thinking, like, I want to turn this into a den. Like, how do I make this a really cozy space? I'm looking at getting a nice, like, floppy accent chair, and I've pulled out some extra blankets. I'm rediscovering some of my favorite old R&B songs from the 90s
Yeah.
that I haven't heard in years, it feels like. Like, I rediscovered Jaguar Wright and Tweet and just
We were just talking about them. I love both of them too.
you know, and it's like, I mean, me, you know, thinking about buying a new like accent chair costs money, but all of those other things were involved with things that I already had in the house, right? It's free to find a new Spotify playlist. If you have candles, grab them. If you don't, you can get some great ones from Dollar Tree, you know, like, and I think we especially with COVID, I think these feelings that a lot of us have this time of year will just be magnified. And so I'm trying to go into overprotective mode. How do I really protect my mind and my spirit for what will probably be the longest winter of any of our lives? So that's what I'm doing. What are you doing?
And you're on the offense, and I love that. I love that. I think it's easy to wait until we're like falling into the pit to think about, oh man, how do I? But when you see the pit like next exit, and you're like, okay, what do I need to stop and get and gather? So important. Vitamin therapy is key for me. It is key for me. I take them religiously. There are different kinds of vitamins just to help with stress relief and stress support. Movement is a big piece for me. I walk every day. And I have every day for the past, I've even lost count. I think it's like 60 some days now. And some days are longer and some days are shorter. And so I do have some chronic health things. And so some days when my back is out or I'm having a migraine or things like that, it may be like a 10-minute walk and it may be a very slow walk, but I get movement in every day. Helps me to feel motivated. I feel like I'm moving forward. I feel like I can get in touch with my mind and my body and my heart and have that silent time where I'm not giving out to anyone else. It's just me, my time with myself, with God. I play my favorite music really, and I work it out. And there are other practices that can be really helpful, but for me, moving my body, staying hydrated, feeding my soul in some way, whether that's a meaningful conversation, reaching out to a friend, whether it's reading a spiritual text, whether it's really deciding how I want to show up in a day with my daughter, with my husband, with my clients, and really ground into being present. Those are helpful. And also really tending to the matters of our own heart. Sometimes, like a little kid, we might just need something. It could be something small. I know with Corona, it adds a whole extra layer. We can't get as many hugs as we probably need, but I have been on a consistent morning call with my sister-in-law and best friend. It's our morning prayer call, and we do it 6 days a week. It's become a grounding anchor. And I've had so many clients who say, I've started like a weekly touch-in with my mom or sister or best friend where we just Zoom for 30 minutes and really kind of just catch up. And sometimes we're both like walking or working out, but we get that time in to connect. We have to get creative with it. But I think when you can think about ways that can feed your mind, your body, your spirit, your heart, and keep it simple. And all of those may not be touched in and on any given day, but picking maybe one that feels good to you and making time for some spaciousness and for some mindfulness. So giving yourself an extra 10 minutes when you wake up to pray or meditate or go for that walk. Even now, we have the luxury of so many home workouts for free on YouTube. Meditations are on there for free. Yoga's on there for free. And one of the things that has helped me the most in my journey of self-love is realizing things don't have to be all or nothing. I used to not work out if I couldn't work out for the full half an hour. And then I realized, am I going to feel better for doing it for 10 minutes than not doing it at all? And blaming myself for not doing it. I might not be able to go do some fancy thing right now because of COVID and so many other factors. But what if we went for just a family walk together, and it could be 20 minutes, but having time to connect without our screens? And so my motto is, how do we bring the sacred to the mundane? How do we bring the sacred to the parts of our life that are boring or not sexy? Like Lexi's saying, you could turn a bath time, get you some Epsom salt, some sea salt with your favorite, shower gel for bubbles, and light a candle. And it could feel like a spa day. Have some music on in the background. That could be something really simple that is accessible no matter where you are. Sometimes life is busy and you don't have time to schedule 1,000 things. But when you keep it simple and when you intentionally tend to those aspects of our life, I think it helps so much to move through seasonal affective disorder, but also life. And many people have some type of mental health challenge. I wouldn't even say illness, though we know there are mental illnesses. Many of us experienced trauma growing up. Many of us have experienced situations that have caused our nervous system to become dysregulated. And that's all mental illness really is a system that's not regulated. And so when we talk about self-care, when we talk about really committing to yourself on a daily basis of being the best version of you and the healthiest version of you, all of those practices lead to regulation of your nervous system, which gives you a better quality of life in all aspects.
Absolutely, 100%. Not sponsored at all. I just bought my grandmother, and she doesn't watch the show. She doesn't know this yet. I just bought my grandmother, my mother, and myself Echo shows. So it's the Amazon little tablet thing where you can video chat with people. And I can't wait, I totally understand what you're saying. I've gotten into a really good routine with talking to both my mother and my grandmother at the same time. And I just think it's going to be so exciting to see their beautiful faces, at least once or twice a week.
That
and
it's
just catch up.
separate from
And
the
they can see
phone.
my little
That it's just like it's separate where there's not as many distractions. I love that idea.
Mhm. Because I have a really bad habit of when I'm on the phone of like playing a game or checking my email at the same time. So I really like the idea of just like when I'm talking to them, I'm just talking to them. That's it. I'm not working. I'm really making that a special time during the day. I'm really excited for them to come in. They're in the
I'm
mail.
so excited. And those are going to be some of the best.
Shameless plug, they're on sale if anyone's interested. They were half off for Prime Day. I don't know how much they are now, but they were still on sale last time I checked.
Beautiful. Check it out, guys. That's beautiful. And even, start where you are. If where you are is maybe setting up a time where you talk to your loved one once a week and schedule that bad boy. Like, don't leave it up for chance. Excuse me. I have found when I schedule something, when I make it a part of my routine, I'm going to get it done. If it's not scheduled and it's based on whenever I feel like it, might not get done. Might not get done.
I'm the same way. It was interesting when COVID first started. I think my friends were almost a little put off by the fact that I would send them my scheduling link. And they're like, oh, like you're so bougie. And I was like, no, I just want to make sure we do this. Here's my scheduling link. Let's put it on the calendar. Let's make it real. And now all of my good friends and I are on a regularly scheduled call. They each have their night of the week. And it's fantastic. And it's the only thing that's really keeping me sane. Do you know what else I just bought? And I wasn't even know this. Another Prime Day buy, once again, not sponsored, but should be. I just bought a 23andMe. And I'm incredibly excited, but also incredibly nervous.
Okay.
But it also goes back to self-care. I have a very two significant autoimmune disorders that run in my family, lupus and scleroderma, more specifically. If you don't know what they are, they both just kind of eat away at your organs. Your immune system thinks that your own organs are a detriment to your body. And it's very prevalent in my family. And there's some other heart related things on my other side of my family. And just for my own self care, I just wanted to know a lot of these things are genetically tied to you. Like, where do I sit in this equation? You know, like, and a bunch of other things. Do I have BRCA1 or the BRCA2 mutation? Where do I sit in terms of Alzheimer's? Like, it's important to me now that I have the funds to be able to make conscious decisions around my health, that I can really take control of it. And so I'm ready to see, you know, what's going on under the hood, you know, and not just, you know, blood tests, but like what's really in my DNA. What am I predisposed to that 20 years ago I would have never known, but now I have the opportunity to see it.
I love that so much. That is so empowering. I love that so much. And I love the fact that you're taking it into your own hands and being empowered by it. It's so beautiful. I hear you around the chronic disease. I mean, it is I want to say more than a notion. I feel like when we think about disabilities or illnesses, it's easy when you can see how it impacts somebody. If someone's in a wheelchair, or if if they have their arm in a sling or in a cast, or if they walk with a limp, like like something is going on with their spine, and you have like compassion for them. And I think what can be difficult about invisible diseases, but you look at somebody and you're like, oh, they look fine. And especially I think when you're younger too, because they're like, oh, she's fine. But we all have our things. And so much with autoimmune disease, it's like every day can be different, and you don't necessarily you're not emailed saying you're going to have a flare on 11/22 around noon, so you can plan around. Like you wake up, you may have felt fine yesterday, and you can wake up today. I did with like a blaring migraine. I'm like, where did this even come from? And it's so true for invisible diseases and conditions. And so my heart goes out to you. And I know so many of our viewers, if you're facing a chronic disease, what are some things that support you? And do you sometimes feel stigmatized by it? I think for me, it was hard to accept for myself, but also um, times where I think usually in public, because I had a good support system, but people would, wonder like, why is she walking so slow? I didn't want to use a cane when I had my car accident years ago, but I could barely walk, and for some months, and it was really hard because it felt like for me, like this should not be happening to me. Like I don't know how this came to be, and sometimes I think it can be even more of a permission slip that we can give ourselves to say, what does my body need on this day or in this season that could help make things a little smoother? It may not take things away, but how can we make it a little smoother? When you have the flu, you can't just pop a pill and get over it, but you can have cough drops and juices and your favorite blanket, and a good show to watch while you're recovering. I think we can give ourselves those things in our life. But I love what Lexi is saying about how we can be intentional about it, so that we are giving ourselves what we need and asking for what we need, which connection is so helpful when it comes to just our outlook and our nervous system. Like when we're in connection, healthy connection, it's so healing.
And what would you recommend for people who may be going through something right now, particularly during COVID? How can they find that sense of connection and community when community seems to be increasingly amorphous?
It's a beautiful question. I would say keep it simple. When I mentioned that my daily walk that I began, so because I have always wanted to walk, we had bought a pre-owned treadmill a few years ago that I use in the mornings. And so when we're here in Florida, I began to say, well, maybe I'll walk outside. It's getting a little cooler, but maybe I'll go outside. And I felt fine about it. And I was like, well, no one's really out here. And then over time, people began to come. And so I go at a certain time. It's the same people, and we wave. Sometimes we talk from across the street. There's this little old man who's like 80, and he rides his bike. It's like a tricycle, and he rides it every day. And every day he waves, and I wave at him. I look so forward to seeing him. So you can find connection sometimes in the most unlikely ways. I know sometimes with COVID, things can be a little awkward. But I have clients who are starting beautiful groups. They have meetup groups that are online for free, that are virtual. They have them for everything, for hobbies, for recovery, for movement, where people are logging into Zoom and doing their workouts together. And so it is having to get creative for sure. Like Lexi is saying, having those scheduled calls for people that you want to catch up with. And here's the thing, sometimes we kind of resist structure. But the reality is, it's so much more likely to happen when you have it planned. And yes, things can move around sometimes, but if you're having a tough week and you know you have a call scheduled with your best friend for Thursday, it can be such a bright spot. Sometimes I think we have to open ourselves up for greater support. That's where maybe having a coach or a therapist can be really helpful and supportive, or even like a support group that you go to. They have them online. You can check out Meetup. You can reach out to certain Google like group therapy, group support groups. They certainly are a good way to tune in and have people that you can connect with. All of the recovery groups, NA, AA, have meetings online now. They have them for all sorts of things. There are mental health support groups that are online that can be supportive. And maybe even I have a client who they have like a dinner each week. It's on Zoom, and they're like six women, and they have their dinner, and it's once a week. But they eat and they share and they laugh, and it's like an hour and a half. But the things that we want to do, we have to make time for them. So they couldn't find time for everyone's schedule, but they could pick a like the dinner time where everyone is sitting down and free around that time. And so I would say get creative. Um, Google, find things in your local area, because there are things. But right now, we also have the gift of technology. I know for certain families who are having a tough time financially, many of the cable companies are giving away like a basic internet for free for families who are lower income and just having a tough time financially. There's that. And so there are ways to kind of make it work, but intentionality is the key when it comes to connection, really finding ways to do it, and to lean into it and to receive it. Sometimes you might have to be the one to spearhead it. You might have to text your friends and say, hey, what do you guys think about this weekly call, or every 2 weeks? But it's worth it. It's worth it to risk the vulnerability to create meaningful connection.
And can you tell a little bit about, for people like my mother, I'm going to call her out. My mother struggles to see the value in connection, and she struggles to see the value in taking time for herself. She's one of those people, like most Black mothers, who gives everything to everyone around her. She's a nurse by day and has a whole family to support, and also supports her friends and her colleagues. So how would you encourage those who may be more resistant to taking care of themselves because they're always taking care of others?
It's a beautiful question. I would say lean into it. Start where you are and start small, but start. Here's the reality, when we don't take care of ourselves, there's always consequences. Our body is like a car. If you do not do maintenance on a car, if you never change the oil, if you never do maintenance, you're going to burn the car out. Before you know it, you're going to have some flat tire because maybe you haven't gotten your tires checked. And so if you had, they would have said the tread's running thin. You'll need new tires in the next few months. The same thing is true when it comes to our own bodies and our own health. There's there's a body of work around the truth in the body mind connection. Our body and our minds are entities that work together. And so when one is off, it impacts the other. When we give, we are putting ourselves in the state of burnout, which lowers our immunity. It lowers our bounce back. When we get sick, it tends to last longer. We have a slower rate of recovery when we are emotionally and physically depleted. There are people who, pass out, faint, whatever, and they go to the doctor and they find out that they're dehydrated and they're exhausted. And that is literally the diagnosis. I have a lot of healthcare professionals as therapy clients, and many of them have had that. They have passed out, had accidents, and tests were ran, and it came down to you are exhausted. Your body is giving out. It needs a break. It needs some time. And so I would say keep it simple. It could be something small, like going for a walk with your friend. I know it's COVID and it's hard, but you can social distance. Taking that call, scheduling in that call to help. Also, you can spend time with people that you care about, and not be maybe helping or fixing. If you're a natural helper or fixer, it could mean spending time with your children, but maybe not doing things for them when you're in that time. Just having a conversation with them can be a way to kind of pull back and not overgive. I think we can also think about, as someone gets older, what are things that you enjoy? Maybe you've forgotten, or maybe things that you used to enjoy, you don't anymore. So it's time to try some new things out. I know with COVID, things are hard because you can find really great coupons for things on Groupon, where you can try something out for the first time, and see if you like it before you make a big investment. But there are definitely ways to lean into the idea that giving is sacred and it's noble, and we need it to make the world go round. But receiving is also just as sacred, and we need that to help things go around the same way. This is what has helped me a lot on my journey. When you think about, there's a cycle of giving and receiving. If you're always giving and you don't allow someone to give back to you, you're blocking that cycle. So sometimes people are just generous and they want to give to you, and they receive so much joy and fulfillment for being able to give back to you. But if you're blocking it, it's almost like your grandkid giving you a Christmas gift, and you're like, no thanks. I don't want it. They would be crushed. But when you are blocking people trying to give and support you, your energy is like, no thanks. I've got this. And that's not what you mean in your heart, but when you're rejecting the abundance that wants to come your way in new relationships, in new conversations, in new experiences. Sometimes older people are living their absolute best lives because they're trying things they would have never thought to try 20 years ago. And I know things are different with COVID, but we can also look at it as an opportunity to try new things. Some of us who have these weekly calls and these check ins with family and friends never had that before COVID happened. We took for granted that. And so, even when you think about finding ways to build more connection, maybe a virtual book club, maybe a theme where you guys are playing a game online. Like, there are ways to make it fun and make it creative, but I think we have to shift our mindset around it, and we have to really look at, how am I preventing myself from having the very thing that I need, which is connection, by not welcoming it in, not making a place for it, not making room for it. The other way is to really think about the fact that you're worthy and deserving of connection, of abundance, of meaningful, true connection. It is so sacred to give, but it's so sacred to receive. And I think as we get older, it can be easy to think that our worth is in our giving, but that's not our worth. We're worthy because we are innately worthy. We can choose to give and choose to be generous, and that's fantastic. But also allow people to be generous with you, because sometimes when we don't allow it, people stop wanting to give it. And so we feel like we're giving and not receiving, but are we blocking it with our energy? Because the kids like, Can I hang out with you?" They're like, "No, no, thanks. I'll just do for you, but don't do for me." It's an energetic block. And I think when we can soften how we look at it, our mindset, our perspective, and say, "I want to give and I want to receive, and I want the sacred cycle to continue and for it to be in flow," you'll find so much more ease. And that's true for people of any age.
That's the quote of the night, everyone. You are worthy. Period.
Period.
Comma. Exclamation
You don't,
point. You are
you don't have
worthy.
to do
That's
anything.
it.
You don't have to do anything to earn it.
You're worthy of everything that you want, everything you've ever deserved in your entire life. One, I guess, important but maybe less serious sidebar when we talk about giving and receiving. I'm curious if this comes up in your practice. I'm sure it has. I feel like there's in certain communities there's a stigma about when we talk about relationships and pleasure. There's an interesting dynamic between sexual pleasure and who is worthy of sexual pleasure in relationships. And I feel as though Black women tend to take a back seat in that discussion, that it's their job to please whomever their partner is, and that they aren't worthy of the same level of exploration or pleasure. Does
It
that
does
ever
come
come
up,
up
and
with
this
your
is
clients?
universal. It's really, I have worked with a lot of white women who have the same complex, and so many Black women really sometimes even are challenged with the idea of like receiving. And so whether it's love or compliments or the idea of pleasure, it's even triggering for some people. It was for me for a long time. When we have trauma history, sometimes we can get this idea of pleasure convoluted because pain has been a part of our life, and so it's important to lean into the idea that we are worthy of pleasure. And I think that we have to also look at shifting societal and cultural norms, because there's so much of our history that's been based on it's a woman's job to please a man or to care for a man or to give to a man or to pour into a man. And it was kind of like one-sided. I watched a TikTok video recently that this guy was like, "You're not helping your wife or your partner if you clean the house or if you watch the kids or if take if you take something that should be her job and you do it." He's like, "This is a partnership. You're not helping her. You're contributing to the relationship." And it was so beautiful just to hear from a man's perspective, because it is true. Life is not on the shoulders of a woman, and men get to receive pleasure and have fun and have independence and have their freedom while we're carrying the brunt of the world. That might be what it was, of course, years ago, times ago. But I think if we can move into the idea that we are worthy of receiving love, pleasure, respect, having boundaries, I think that it can be triggering for women sometimes to talk about their own sexuality, but there are more conversation around some of the incongruencies in sexual relationships. Is one person expects to have a certain kind of experience, and it's the job of the other person to give them that experience, and then that's that. And that's not the case. I think we have to learn to have conversations around what makes us both happy and the kind of needs that we both have, and then how they can be met in a way that's affirming for both people. It can be hard sometimes, I think, for women to express that they have needs, sometimes even with themselves, that they have a need. You have to identify that you have a need before it can be met sometimes. And so I definitely think that if we're stuck in the role of giving, 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 we can be energetically blocking our portal to receive and to grow in being comfortable with receiving. And it's true for sex, but it's also true for a relationship. We can overgive in romantic relationships to the point where the other person may not think that we need anything because we don't ask for it. We don't open ourselves up to it. And so this is a deeper conversation, but it goes into really balancing and integrating your own masculine and feminine energy because both are needed and both are within every human, but we can be primarily more in one energy than the other. When we're in more of a masculine energy, we are forward facing and we're giving, giving, giving. When we can lean back and tap into our feminine energy, that's rooted in flow and receiving and divinity, we can really create that yin and yang in our life and see it expressed in our external lives. But again, we all have both energies. It's about integrating them and learning to operate in both of them throughout the day. We sometimes demonize masculine energy. It's not bad, but anything can be toxic if we're viewing it from the shadow side or from the wounded side. A positive trait can come off as negative if we're in the wrong perspective about it.
Yeah, my entire life I've been put in this weird box of having being more masculine, whatever that means. I don't like labels or anything because I've always been a fairly forward, blunt person and I work in finance and I say what's on my mind and I don't have children, nor do I have the desire to have them. And it's I don't know, it's weird how you can be demonized for just being yourself. Like I didn't choose to think the way I think or have these qualities, and nor do I really think they should be associated with anything in particular. It's just me, you know?
Label,
Um,
we're like put in these
yeah,
binary boxes. Yeah.
it's so strange. Tell me a little bit about, from your experience, is there a way where someone can feel as though they're out of balance in a relationship, whether it be romantic, platonic, professional, or otherwise? And then how can they, what tips do you have for them to talk to that partner or that client or that boss on how to recalibrate those relationships?
Yeah, for sure. I believe, give me 1 second, I apologize. Um,
Take your time.
whenever,
Plays dramatic Jeopardy music.
yes, trying to, my daughter's getting picked up with her dad to come home, and I'm like arranging things. No big deal. The reality is, it's easy to notice when things are out of balance, and sometimes it can start off as like I call it like a pebble the size of maybe a penny, and you can like feel it, and then it grows to a little rock, a bigger rock, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and you feel the vibrations of this contrast in your life when we're not having the conversations with people to express kind of what's happening and really like as it's happening, not just like a buildup. So, for example, if someone's speaking to you in a way that does not make you feel good, and they may not mean to be disrespectful, they may be calling you by a certain name or a certain nickname, and you don't like it. It's okay for you to have a conversation and say, I really value our relationship or our positions. I want to be at work together with you as a team, and when you say this, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I'm asking that you shift the language around that. I would like to be called by my name. For example, we can have conversations in a way where we express what we're wanting and needing, but I call it a compliment sandwich. You give a compliment or an affirmation around, I appreciate our friendship, I value this relationship, and then you ask for what you're wanting, and then you end on um, a a gratitude about having a conversation or them being open to hearing you. So it's compliment, ask, and compliment. But you don't have to be in energy that feels incongruent for you. But people feel attacked sometimes when you just come at them with what's wrong that's happening and nothing else. And so when we can give the compassion that we would want in return, it can be really helpful. I would also say in relationships, if when you finish talking or interacting with somebody, you begin to not feel good about the interaction. We all have friends that when we hang out with them, we feel amazing after. We feel lit up. We feel like it's been a great conversation. We can't wait to meet them again. It's good. Then when you talk to people who you finish the conversation and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I could sleep for days. That was so draining. When you begin to have situations like that, and they begin to happen, one time could be enough. But if you like patterns like I do, if they begin to happen again and again, that's a bell that a conversation needs to be had around the dynamics of this. I had a talk with a friend recently who I love dearly, been friends forever, but I said, I know you're in a tough spot right now, and my heart goes out to you. I'm here for you. And it feels like you only call when you want something. And that does not feel good to me. I value our friendship and I want it to be a lifelong friendship, but you seem to only call when you want something. And this has been going on for a while now.
I think it's incredibly bold of you to have that conversation. I think that every single person watching this in their mind has that friend that they need to say that to. Everyone. And for a lot of us, myself included, it's scary to think that, you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to put them into a darker place. You want to make sure that someone is there for them. But once again, you have to think about yourself and what's best for you.
And it can be nuanced. We have a history. We have worked our way up to being vulnerable and honest and transparent. And here's the thing. When you want to keep the relationship, when you want it to last in a healthy way, it's worth it to build up your skills to have the conversation. It's emotional intelligence. I work with people, I coach with people on this. There are many folks who can coach you on how to become more grounded in your own essence, because we cannot avoid boundaries, we cannot avoid conflict resolution, and we cannot avoid hard conversations that in reality may not even be as hard as we're making it out to be in our mind. Because when we don't have those conversations, oftentimes the relationship will end in a not so good way. Because for women, sometimes we get to a point where we're done and that's the end of the road. And if we don't catch it before it gets to that point, sometimes there's no turning back. And here's the thing, people don't have an opportunity to shift their behavior if we don't make them aware of it. Some people are naturally kind of self-centered and they don't even mean to talk about themselves all the time. They don't have the best self-awareness. And for many of us, myself included, who have been on a journey of increasing self-awareness, things may come up for us that feel more natural. Folks who haven't been doing that work, it may not seem natural to them. And so having brave dialogue can be helpful in the relationship, but also it may help them to see other areas of their life where they're not being self-aware. And the truth is, it might not, but it's your job to take care of yourself. And when we engage in relationships that are not healthy, we are harming ourselves. And emotional self-harm is detrimental.
Absolutely. I think that's really the message of the night, almost like Sesame Street. We have to take care of ourselves because, not to quote RuPaul, but if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Or how are you going to ask for yourself to be fully loved when you aren't loving you? and you're not asking people to love you in a healthy way. And it takes time. These conversations can take time, but when you lean into increasing your own self-awareness and your own emotional intelligence, they become easier when you know I'm saying this with love, and I'm saying so that we can have an even better relationship.
Absolutely. It's so important, really, really important. And I think on that note, we're going to wrap it up at the end of the night. My puppy's telling me it's time to go play. Samara's got some family logistics to handle. But thank you again, everyone, for being with us and enjoying this with us and living with us here at the Louvre Table Talk. Once again, thank you to my, I don't even know what to call you, guest, co-host, co-podcaster,
You and I, co-host for life at this point.
the second best podcast on that streams right now, right after Sibling Rivalry, which is my favorite. It's Bob the Drag Queen and Monet Exchange. But thank you again, everyone, for watching. Once again, take care of yourself. Please do it for you. Do it for everyone around you. And this has been another episode of Louvre Table Talk. We're here Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, sponsored by the Louvre Health Co., which is an entirely comprehensive digital wellness platform created by Elle and Dylan, the lovely voices behind this program. Thank you again, everyone. It's been To Be Black and Female, and good night.
Good night, guys.